Hey everybody, it's Brian Shannon from Alphatrends.net. Today's Friday, the 14th of April, and this week we had a positive market. Everything but, the bonds fell back a little bit, and the semiconductors just 12 basis points. So overall, it was a positive week with a little bit of profit taking here today. The S&P 500, you can see, has broken out of that little range that we've been in here for the last couple of weeks, and it came back and tested it today and held above that rising 5-day moving average. This blue line is the month-to-date anchored VWAP. So that adds a little bit of extra significance to this 409, 410 level next week. It's looking like this market really just wants to ignore all the bad news out there and continue to move higher. We are, however, just starting into earnings season. So, here we are in this weekly time frame. The anchored volume weighted average price off of the all-time high actually is that, and we are above it. We've been above it before, so that doesn't mean that automatically just because we have a higher high, we're in a sustainable uptrend. You have to ask yourself, as always, how did it get here? So if we break beyond this range, a lot of people will be saying that's officially now a new stage two uptrend. And I wouldn't really disagree with them, but the point is it actionable? Can we really look at that if it breaks above there as a low risk point to get involved in the market for a longer term portfolio? I think it's not, because we just rallied from 380 to up to 420 to get there. So a 40-point move, that's more than 10%. So you've got to look at it in pieces and say, looking at that daily time frame, for instance, if we were to look here and put an anchored volume weighted average price off of that low, perhaps, a pullback down towards 400 in the coming weeks. Maybe we break out, and then after earnings, we start to pull back a little bit, and then we see that 400 level tested, and then we have all these moving averages, which are rising, start to catch up to it and create some support underneath. So again, it's not a prediction, it's a potential scenario for the S&P 500. And right now, we've still got to just look at the market from the intermediate term perspective, as it made this low this week, and then it made a higher low. It made this high, and then it made a higher high. So we have higher highs and higher lows this week. The NASDAQ experienced a little bit of profit taking as well. As we know, this market on the weekly time frame we discussed last week is looking a lot better than the S&P 500. There's the anchored VWAP from the all-time high, still kind of battling that, and we've had now this the second week to digest this 3-week rally, which was a pretty good sized rally. So we're digesting more through time, correcting through time, rather than a sharp price pullback, and that's always preferable. So when we look at the two time frames here, you can see on the left is the daily, and here's a 20-day moving average. So that adds support to this market and the importance of this level as well. This week's low is going to be an important level for the market to hold over the next couple of weeks. So you can look at that and say, as long as that holds, we're still going to give the benefit of the doubt to the buyers. We realize that it has had this big run here, and if it fails, then perhaps, if it was to do something like this, then perhaps it comes down and tests the 50-day moving average and the anchored VWAP from that low, and the anchored VWAP from the COVID low. So again, we just have to take it on a stock by stock basis. There's still a lot of, there's a lot of stocks setting up out there. ONON gave a nice entry in here today. I had done a video with Richard Moglen on Thursday. That'll be out this weekend. So if you follow me on YouTube, I promise it's a really good interview, and you're going to have to look at Twitter to see that, because it's not on my YouTube channel. So I will put that out when I see it, but there are opportunities out there. Sienna is looking like it wants to get going. It saw another pullback in here today. It's still holding the month-to-date VWAP. If you look at the weekly time frame, let's look right here. It's battling with the anchored VWAP from the all-time high. And if it can convincingly get above that here in the next week or so, if it gets back above here and holds above here, well, then I think you've got a brand new stage two uptrend, because we have a rising 10, 20, 30, and 40-week moving average, and the average short seller from since the highest point is in a losing position, and the average long who purchased all the way down. And look at how that anchored VWAP held as resistance, 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 resistance. And if it can break through there, then I think you're going to see Sienna start to make a move higher. So that's a good one to put on your radar. This BRZE, I've been talking about this one. It hasn't given us any reason to get involved yet. This is what I'm hoping it will do. This is what I sketched in for subscribers last night. It's just not ready yet. Let's go back to to the indices and look at the Russell 2000, this market has had a little bit of trouble with the 178, 179 level. It's still the laggard overall. One slight positive, it's got a rising 20-day moving average, but when you look overhead, we have a declining 50-day moving average. We have the anchored volume weighted average price from the high this year up near that 200-day moving average and near that year-to-date anchored VWAP. So you have to look at this and say, what's the potential upside before it's likely to encounter supply? Well, that 50-day moving average is bearing down on this level as well. So in the next week or so, if it rallies up there, maybe it's good for a trade, but I wouldn't be too confident that it would be able to get through there quickly. Semiconductors are still digesting their gains. They are, maybe looking like they need a little bit of further consolidation through time. And if they break below and hold below 249, then there could be a deeper sell-off that perhaps brings it down to the year-to-date anchored VWAP. That would bring it down to about 242. So you keep an eye on the semiconductors, because if they fail in here, that's going to drag the Nasdaq lower. The other, the other scenario is maybe it breaks this trend line, gets back above the 5-day moving average and the month-to-date VWAP, and then continues to move higher. So be prepared for either one of those. Wait for price confirmation before you get involved. The biotechs had a little bit of strength, and they gave it a lot of it back here today as well. So they're still in a primary downtrend. Here's the anchored VWAP from the recent low. Here's the anchored VWAP from the year-to-date high. That also comes together with the 50-day moving average, which is declining. So I still think there's better opportunities elsewhere. Maybe this is going to turn into something later this year, but right now it looks like a big waste of time. Financial stocks also, where they're getting a better bounce and a quicker bounce than I would have thought was possible. It really doesn't matter to me because I don't trade these stocks anyways. But it's interesting to look at from the standpoint that that doesn't kill the market, might end up making it stronger. That this market, I thought it was going to take more time for them to experience a significant bounce. It's still not significant. I mean, it's about 10% though. But where does it have the potential to go? Well, it's right at the anchored VWAP from the year-to-date highs. So just be careful with those financials. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. This is the weekly chart of Bitcoin, and you can see we made it past that anchored VWAP from the all-time high. Now it looks like it's making a run perhaps to the anchored VWAP from the low of 2021, the summer low, that is, and above that is the anchored VWAP from the 2021 high. So these become the next levels of interest, and let's just slide that over so we can see the price action. That would be about 33 to 35,000. And right now, I think it's prudent to take a look at this and say, this was clearly an important low, so we put an anchor on that. Pullbacks I would expect to be held, controlled by that level. So if you see a quick flush down to 26,500 or so, be on the lookout for potential support in that area. Oil, I'll also mention here. As we know, this market came down close to, let's just do this. Kind of the scaling gets screwed up sometimes on this chart. But here's the anchored VWAP from when oil went negative, and we found buyers in that general area. Now we're heading up to the anchored VWAP from the high that it made last year, middle of last year. This was the high last year, and this looks like a likely level. Just when I leave that there, you can see that this is prior support in this area, prior resistance. So be aware that oil might be running into supply up near about 84.5 to 85. It has the potential to run into supply. This is a level of interest that might slow this rally down. Energy names, the stocks, they've been in a very strong uptrend. They're holding the 5-day moving average in the month-to-date VWAP, and they did test the year-to-date anchored VWAP. So looks like these have turned around, but they're also range bound. So I don't see a whole lot of excitement in there. For me, I would much rather be looking at stocks like NEWR. This stock is just fighting with the anchored VWAP from that high. That was an earnings report, and you can see the range is tightening up nicely in here. This is one that keep an eye on this one for potential upside from here. DOCU is one that got short today and I think can continue lower, but of course a stop has to go somewhere up around that 56 and a quarter. Looking at these types of stocks are what I do every day for subscribers to alphatrends.net. If you haven't taken a look in the past, sign up for a 2-week trial and see if it's appropriate for you. Have a good weekend and give this a like, give it a share with your friends and all that stuff. Talk to you next week.